The diner sat along Route 66 near Flagstaff, Arizona, glowing softly under buzzing lights as evening settled in. Cars passed by outside, but inside the air smelled of coffee, fries, and tired hopes. Emma Carter moved between tables with steady steps, balancing plates like she balanced life. She was a single mom, and every shift mattered more than most people knew. Emma had learned to smile, even when her feet hurt, and her heart felt heavy. Her 8-year-old son, Noah, waited at home with a neighbor until her shift ended. Bills stacked on the kitchen table, like quiet threats she tried not to fear. Still, she believed kindness was something no one could take from her. At the far corner booth sat a man in a dark suit, his posture stiff and distant. He looked out of place among truckers and families, like he belonged somewhere else. Emma noticed his watch first, expensive and heavy, catching the diner's light. She didn't know he was a billionaire named Richard Hawley. Richard had ordered little and spoken less, his voice calm but cold. Emma checked on him anyway, refilling his coffee without being asked. "Thank you," he said once, without meeting her eyes. She nodded and smiled, treating him like everyone else. As the story begins, if you believe kindness can change lives in unexpected ways, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and stay with this story. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Now, let's continue. Richard ate slowly, his thoughts far from the diner and its worn booths. Years of success had left him rich but empty, guarded by walls he built himself. He had lost faith in people after betrayal followed betrayal. Tonight, he just wanted silence and a meal. When he finished, he stood up and placed cash on the table. Emma came by later to clear the dishes, already bracing herself. There was no tip at all, not even loose change. She swallowed disappointment, reminding herself not to judge. As she lifted the plate, something slid slightly underneath it. A folded paper, thick and carefully tucked away, caught her eye. Emma hesitated, then gently pulled it free with shaking fingers. It wasn't money, but it felt heavier than cash. Inside was a handwritten note and a small key taped to it. The note read, "For the one who treated me like a human." Emma's breath caught as she read the words again. Her heart pounded with confusion and curiosity. She looked around the diner, but the man was already gone. Questions rushed through her mind faster than she could stop them. Why leave this for her? A stranger in an apron? What did the key unlock? Later that night, Emma sat at her small kitchen table in Flagstaff. Noah slept nearby, his homework spread out beside him. She unfolded the note again, tracing the letters slowly. For the first time in months, she felt hope stir. The next morning, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the key. After dropping Noah at school, she drove to the address written below the note. It led her to a quiet community center on the edge of town. Her hands trembled as she stepped inside. A woman at the front desk smiled warmly when Emma showed the note. "Oh, you must be the waitress," she said softly. Emma nodded, suddenly nervous, unsure if she belonged there. The woman gestured down the hall without another word. At the end of the hall was a small room filled with light. Inside were supplies, tables, and signs for a struggling food program. Emma realized the key unlocked this room. This chance. Tears filled her eyes as the meaning slowly became clear. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. Richard Hale's test of kindness had already been answered, and fate was quietly preparing something much bigger for both of them. Emma stood alone in the small room, the hum of old lights filling the silence. She walked slowly between the tables, touching the worn chairs with care. A paper on the wall explained the program helped single parents find work and meals. Emma pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed by what kindness had unlocked. That evening, she returned home with a lighter heart than she'd felt in years. Noah noticed right away, watching her move with new energy. "Mom, did something good happen?" he asked from the couch. She smiled and hugged him, whispering, "Yes, something very good." Over the next weeks, Emma volunteered at the center after her diner shifts. She helped serve meals, organize supplies, and listen to people's stories. Each smile she gave came back to her 10 times stronger. For the first time, she felt seen without being known. One afternoon, a familiar figure walked through the center's doors. Emma recognized the suit, the watch, and the guarded posture instantly. Richard Hollis stood there, looking uncertain, almost nervous. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Richard said quietly. Emma held the note in her hand, folded and worn from rereading. "I didn't know what to expect," she replied honestly, "but I'm glad I did." Richard explained that the center was one of many quiet projects he funded. He tested the world now and then, not with money, but with moments. Most people noticed what he didn't give, not what he left behind. Emma had noticed something else entirely. "You treated me kindly when you thought I was nothing," he said. Emma shook her head gently. "I never thought that." Her voice was steady, her eyes sincere. "That's just how people should be treated." Richard looked away, emotion breaking through years of control. No one had spoken to him like that in a long time. In her, he saw warmth he thought he'd lost forever. In him, she saw pain softened by honesty. Weeks passed, and Richard kept returning to the diner. This time, he always sat in Emma's section. They talked about Noah, about loss, about mistakes, and hope. Something real began to grow between them, slow and strong. One night, Richard stayed after closing to help stack chairs. Emma laughed, surprised to see a billionaire rolling up his sleeves. "I guess money doesn't teach you everything," he joked. She smiled, realizing true wealth looked different now. Months later, the community center expanded with new programs. Emma was offered a paid role helping manage it. Her diner apron was replaced with a badge and a purpose. Her life was changing, not by luck, but by love. Richard never stopped being generous, but he learned something deeper. Kindness wasn't a test. It was a bridge. Emma taught him that love grows where respect lives. And Emma learned she was worthy of more than survival. On a quiet evening in Flagstaff, Emma and Richard watched Noah play nearby. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft colors. What started with no tip had become a future full of promise. Because kindness, when chosen freely, changes everything.